Good morning, Dr. Jawahar Nesan. How are you?
Good morning to you too. I'm very much fine.
That's great, sir. So we are glad to have you on our Thoughtful Leaders series, and we would just really appreciate if you could just give your introduction to the viewers and tell them about your journey.
I am Professor Jawahar Nesan, currently serving as Vice-Chancellor of JSS Science and Technology University in Mysore. And just before this, I was also a Vice-Chancellor for one of the leading South Indian universities in Chennai, called the Savita University. And before then, I had about 20 years of my experience over 3 continents in United States. I was a senator and a faculty member involving in high-level academic activities. And also I was an invited resource person and advisor and come director for University Technology Malaysia, one of the largest universities in Asia, to facelift that university as an apex university commissioned by the Parliament of Malaysia. And and of course, I studied in England, both my master's and PhD. And I think that's enough.
That's great, sir. Thank you so much for that brief introduction of yours. Moving ahead to the first question, I just want to understand that being the Vice Chancellor of JSS Science and Technology University, what is your philosophy of leadership and how would you describe your leadership style?
Actually, my philosophy of leadership is empowerment because education is to deal with knowledge, pursue knowledge, cater knowledge, and to deal with human experience. And it is a process of social function. So in that way that it is predominantly an affair of human. So in that way that it is not like a shop floor and it is not like a production unit where you are dominated with machines and materials. Whereas the material here is only knowledge. And the process of the knowledge, by which we handle knowledge is simply cognition, reasoning, and so on. So that means that a human being are the most important asset in any educational settings. So in that way, I feel that people should be empowered, not to be driven by somebody sitting at the top hierarchically. Because the one I know, I'm a construction engineering expert. I know only that. I do not know what is the nitty-gritties involved and the philosophy of mechanical engineering, even though it is an engineering. So in that way, that how can I direct the mechanical engineering faculty to go ahead and to direct them to do certain things to improve performance? So in that way, what I feel is that people should be empowered, and only then the knowledge productivity will be improved or increased in any university. Because universities these days are expected to be a catalytic force in the transformation of the society and in both the society as well as the national transformation. So in that way, universities those days were treated as something like a place where we cater knowledge through a learning process and certify them as having completed the domain of studies. But those days are gone. Now, knowledge has to be addressed, knowledge has to be synthesized, and knowledge has to be processed. And we have to, using that knowledge, we have to contribute to the society and the transformation of the society, the evolution of the society in that way that I strongly feel that unless people are empowered, I don't think that we will be making an edge, or I don't think that we will be making truly the education process in the delivery system. So that is why my philosophy of leadership is that at all levels, issues should be devolved, and people should be empowered, and to come out with ideas, innovations, and thereby we can take an amalgamation of different line of thoughts and from different walks of life. And with that, I think that we will be able to, deliver the requirements these days, because the educational process is highly competitive in nature, and it is global, and there is the way we are doing in India is mostly a rote-based education process, and the administrative leadership style that we follow is do what I say kind of things. Most of the universities in India say, whether public or private universities, and this attitude should be shed away, because do what I say attitude would work in army or in the defense when we are fighting between countries, but not in the university system, because in the university system, even the learner is an asset for producing knowledge. I mean the students, because we used to think that the students come with the empty vessel, I mean the brain, and we are trying to put the information into that vessel and send them out with degree certificates. That should be stopped. Even the world now is heading towards a higher education system where the learners are the prime source of knowledge productivity. That means the students are expected to produce knowledge, synthesize knowledge, observe information, synthesize the information, and reflect on that information so that it becomes knowledge. So that reflection process should be, inculcated in the way we address the education process. By that way, I think that we will be able to, address the needs of the country and society at large. So by that way, I feel that the leadership, the administrative style should be, changed. Even in my university, since past 6 months, I have been trying to re-engineer the complete administrative protocol and the system, so that we would be able to make a conducive administrative qualities and system in place, so that the futuristic university that we are intending to make now would be a very much a possibility.
Very well said, sir. Very well said. Vice-Chancellor of JSS, and how do you strategize about the key programs and plans for the marketing and administration of your university?
Say, I would not prefer the word marketing, because as I fully understand, agree with you that it is being marketed now. Most of the higher education institutions are being marketed. So in that way, education has been commercialized. Education has become a business. And education is driven by the market anyway. The economic market, the economic sectors. The neoliberal markets are controlling largely the education sector nowadays. In that way, I wouldn't like to use such terms like customer, like marketing, and so on. But the program should be basically not demand-driven, but society-driven. Demand means in the way, actually, programs, educational programs are normally these days are market-driven. Say, for instance, if I quote you an example, say many companies, X, Y, Z, are coming to engineering institutions and say that you produce your graduates employable, and they would dictate what that employability means, and they would tell what those skills are. And those skills normally, if you look at, are very, very narrow and in nature, and it is not broad enough for the learners to equip themselves in the broadest fashion, so that their in the aftermath of their studies, their social, professional dispositions would be complete. That doesn't happen. Say, for instance, the students do not have emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is very important as a part of the higher education system, so that whether they study engineering or medicine or whatsoever, they must be able to come out with an all-round skills and knowledge and grasping and reasoning skills, so that they can take the ideas, reflect it, process it, reflect it, and apply in the real world with all social concerns, with all technical scientific concerns, without compromising themselves in taking their decisions in profession. So by that way, education has to be something like a society driven. What I am trying to make, since you asked me marketing and steering the programs, that is your question. The programs I would like to, in a nutshell, say that should be society driven. Why I call it as, yes, why I say it as society driven is that education involves the process of learning. Learning is a part of social function. And that learning involves not only cognitive process, but also reasoning. And if you connect all these things, this is what society is doing. Whether you have university or schools there in the past 50 years ago, 50,000 years ago, or 10,000 years ago, or even 1,000 years ago, what was the primary function of learning? It is the primary function of social function. It is the society's primary social function is to think and learn. And it is not education that makes them to think and learn or play. They have been doing. The society is learning on its own. And as a part of the society, we all human beings are learning. And who we are to say with all authenticity that educational institutions are the only place to learn. So why educational institutions have cropped up is that at some point of time that we needed to streamline the societal learning process and give accessibility to all walks of life, so that they would be able to go ahead and think and get the accessibility to all information, knowledge available elsewhere. And that was not possible those days, especially recent days, 50 years ago, 100 years ago. There were racial systems, there were ups and downs the society had, and a caste system in India. There are a lot of social segregations there. Those who are the privileged part have got the access to get the knowledge and information. But those who had not the privilege, or those who are socially disabled, were not able to get access to information, knowledge, and learning process. And that is why there was an insistence 200 years ago, 300 years ago, the nation states wanted to take that responsibility of education, which was primarily the responsibility of the society. That is when the governments had taken the responsibility of education to ensure that this education is accessed by all walks of life without discriminations, without based on caste, creed, color, race, and so on. So that doesn't mean that nowadays what happened now, education has been seen as a process to be confined within four walls in universities and schools. Mm-hmm. And the real process of the education as a part of the social function of the society has been lost now. And that's why education has been made now a business, and it is commercialized. And education has now been driven by the economic forces and the industries and business sectors, corporate bodies. They all come and tell the universities and colleges, hey, you do the education this way because your employers, your graduates are going to be our future employers, and you offer this skills, that skill, and stop period. Is that what education is about? Education is training the mind to think, and making the man of manhood, and in the domains that he reads and studies and become an expertise. So in that way that the education has lost its intended purpose, and it has been dominated by the corporate worlds. And these corporate worlds and industries are narrowing down the broadest spectrum of the education. That way we have lost. That's why I want my programs to be society-driven primarily. Because why we need to have industries, corporate bodies, business sectors, all. These are all service sectors. Right. They are serving only to the requirements of the society.
All right.
That means they are producing. If I am making a processed milk meal, that milk is going to be served only to the society back. So I cannot decide what society should drink. I cannot decide what society should eat or should use. And society should tell the companies and corporate worlds, yes, this is my demand. You offer this service. But that doesn't happen now because education has been trapped under the armpit of these people, these neoliberal corporate worlds and market forces, and they dominate the education platform, the education sector. By that way, the natural process of the education that was imbibed in the society for thousands and thousands of years, time immemorial, have been lost. That is why I want to take the education, go back to basic, and render its service the way it has been doing for thousands of years. Whether we had universities and schools there or not are now, but that was the original process of education. That's what I want to do through our program. So that means all these society's requirements will be imbibed continuously, dynamically, and we are going to harvest, cultivate the human experience. And those human experience were based on the requirements of the social requirements only. And those requirements in terms of the human experience would be cultivated and consumed and harvested into our curriculum, so that our curriculum will directly meet the requirements of the society, and by that way the industries will be constrained to work towards the society, but not on the other way around. This is what I call society-driven education, and I'm now in the process of translating all of our programs in the campus towards a society-driven education.
So, sir, moving on to the next question, how does the curriculum of JSS Science and Technology University ensure the best practice of industry?
Yeah, partially I have addressed this to the previous question. But what I feel is that since you are talking about curriculum is the overall framework that gives us a complete structure of delivering the program, and it tells us the syllabus, the dynamism of the curriculum in reflecting the industry's best practices and requirements, and so on. So all those things would be incorporated and consumed and delivered through a process. Say, when I said before to the first question, society driven, that means that we are reflecting only the industry, because industry is the subset of society, and the industry best practices and requirements are the norms, especially in science and technology universities, because we are more application-oriented programs. In that way, without meeting the industry's requirements, we may not be able to. So what we are trying to do is that addressing both in a balanced way, what the society needs now, and alongside what the industry also requires from us, from our graduates. Say, it is not just to only producing the graduates, but also to produce the knowledge and cater that knowledge to the society and the industry as well. So it is a process of an osmosis between the society and industry on one hand and the university on the other hand. That osmosis process is refracting all those requirements and knowledge between both sides. And we want to position and continually make our curriculum dynamic in such a way that it will be in such a manner that it will be able to meet the requirements of the industry as well. Say, for instance, we are, as you are aware, that our college, Jayachandra College of Engineering, was one of the finest institutions, engineering institutions in the country. It has all basic facilities like laboratories. We have superior infrastructure and research-intense laboratories, and also supercomputer laboratory we have, which many institutions do not have. And we are having highly competent faculty members, especially in computer information science areas. You will see we have our strongest foothold in areas like artificial intelligence and machine learning, which are the futures for our cyber physical system in the future. So all those things are there, but provided all these things, if your curriculum is not dynamic enough, all these things would go waste. So this is what I want to say, that the infrastructure we have, the laboratories we have, all are just immobile assets. Unless we have a suitable curriculum, unless we have a dynamic curriculum that reflects the society and that reflects the industry's requirements, they are not going to make any inch ahead in improving our educational delivery process. So that is why I say that curriculum is the important thing for us. Curriculum should be dynamic enough to cultivate the requirements of the society and in turn the requirements of the industry, so that we will be able to even tell the industry that this is what the society requires, and also give the industry the skill sets and knowledge required from our graduates, their potential employees, and also the cutting edge knowledge that we produce for our research. So that means our curriculum is research driven, it is society driven, and it is going to not just only produce the competitive, skillful, employable graduates, but also we want to come out with the knowledge that is going to shape the world, the industry's future. And also, as you might have heard, that the Industry 4. The Industry 4 skills, I don't believe. Sometimes I also feel that it is a kind of how to say that? It is a kind of a strategy of the Western world as well to get their economy back. But again, if we are forced, we should be also ready. This part of the world is developing world, and we should also have our own nicheness and strengths in competing with the highly progressive worlds. So by that way, not just only the local industry, but also with the globalized industry, with all globalized requirements, we are fine-tuning our curriculum so that this curriculum is going to deliver what the society and the industry needs contemporarily, continually. And so by that way, we are revising the curriculum with our boards of studies, and we are innovating. There are few major interventions we are trying to achieve in our curriculum. The intervention is society-driven educational intervention that I discussed before in the previous question. Right. And another intervention is innovation, because the students should be able to imbibe the attitude of creativity and innovation in creating the ideas and making those ideas into kind of a product or physical service whatsoever. And all those things should happen from the first year onwards to our graduates. So that innovation is another intervention we want to make. And then youth development. Youth development, if you look at the United States, the UNESCO definition on youth development, and the Indian government definition on youth development, there are about 6 futures of youth development. Youth means the students, the people aged from 15 years to 29 years. So this is the time all of them come to higher education studies. Most of them come for higher education studies in universities like us. So that means that education should not just only, equip them in towards the industry's requirements, but also their own development. And that is one of the major reasons that our youths are not employable and not able to, dispose their professional skills after the studies. So that's why I want to incorporate youth development into our curriculum. And that youth development focuses on health, focuses on political participation, focuses on civic participation, and focuses on a couple of other more issues necessary for youth development. So that means our curriculum is going to be an all-round grooming of the graduates, not just simply for industry best practices or just narrowly to some corporate goals, but it is a holistic kind of a delivery process in our education so that our graduates will be able to become an asset for the country and society in the future.
Great, sir. All right. And moving ahead to the next question, what would you like the people or the students to know about your university which they might not know?
Yeah, my university is a budding university. It has been there for 60 years now. But as a university, it is only 4 years completed. It is in the 5th year now. And so as an institution of excellence in engineering, for the past 50 years, our institution was one of the finest engineering institutions in the country. And we were the destination for the top grade students. And our students are highly, employable. And ours are the first destination for potential employers. And we get 100% placements after the studies. And so these are all the past performance of our institution. But when it comes to university, we are just only 4 or 5 years old. And if I have to say something that our university, being a new, small university, that is our richness and that is our strength. And with that, we are trying to test the model ever first in India, that is a society-driven education. And that model, if applied and created properly and successfully, it is going to be a model for the whole country, not only for the whole country and for the whole world. That one thing that I would like to convey, and that is the richness of our university. And more than that, sometimes our university is known as a teaching-based university, but it is not. We have centers of excellence that many top universities do not have, like Indian Rubber Institute is housed in our university. It's a supercomputer we have, and we have a center of excellence and expertise in artificial intelligence, machine learning, and also in construction technology, in civil engineering, information science, and environmental engineering. These are all our niche areas where we are not simply offering education alone, but we are producing cutting-edge knowledge in these areas. And by that way, I would say that it is academically an excellent institution, since we are producing knowledge in these areas, and we are also creating a greater impact in the way in which universities are creating such impacts in India in certain niche areas. I think this is what I would like to convey, that many people in the country may not know about our university.
That's great, sir. Thank you so much for that information. Just a last question before we wrap this interview up. Is there any suggestions you would like to give the current youth and the aspiring students?
I think that the youths in this country should equip more than what university equips, as the information is there elsewhere and the knowledge is there elsewhere, and it is at 360 degrees that they have to equip themselves. The subject or discipline oriented knowledge is, I think that everyone will have it. All youths will have the basic knowledge of the related to the discipline. But what they may not have is the knowledge related to the society, the knowledge related to the industry where they are going to work, and the workplace knowledge, and the industry knowledge, and societal knowledge are, I think, are going to be more than what they used to study in the university system. So that means they have to equip themselves additionally more than what is being offered in the university system through curriculum. The students, the youths, should be able to use this opportunity in the university system, the learning process, to train the mind, to improve their thinking capacities, to improve their reasonings and other necessary skills, so that they will be able to acquire all-round skills and knowledge as the best possible human being in their disciplines, and they will be the most wanted citizens anywhere they work or anywhere they live. I think that is my message.
Thank you so much for such a wonderful message, sir.